Welcome to Music Ed Tech Talk, a podcast exploring music, education, technology, and the intersections between them, with a special focus on the productive and creative process. I'm your host, Robby Burns. Thanks to my sponsor this week, Flat for Education. With me today is Dr. Frank Buck. Frank, how's it going?
It's great, Robby. Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've been on.
I think I counted about 3 or 4 years. It was about fall 2016, I think, that we last did this.
Something like that, yeah.
And we're talking about a similar subject. If you don't mind, I'd love to just set up the subject of the episode and just explain why specifically I wanted you to be here. I think I
absolutely, yeah. Go for it.
Yeah. So I've been taking the summer to focus a little bit on some of these teacher and student-facing music technologies that many of which run in a web browser, things that teachers are probably using to engage their students online this fall. But as a topic that's near and dear to my heart and gets regular attention on the show, but not in a little while, is productivity. And I've just been reflecting on my process and my apps and my workflows a lot lately, and I thought it would be fun to do a mini-series that you're lined up for the next couple of these. I'm calling it Productivity Bootcamp. And
I like that, yeah.
I'm excited. You're with me for the next 2 episodes, I should say up front, and we're going to talk about some of the basics, and then I have a couple of more advanced kind of follow-up episodes that I'm planning that get into the depths of some automation and some things. But the reason why you come to mind is we met at the Texas Music Educators Association conference about 5 or so years ago, and I just remember seeing that there was another productivity nerd at the Texas Music Educators Association. I was like, I've got to meet this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found each other on the showroom floor and got talking, and we're into a lot of the same methodologies for organizing our lives and being productive people.
Yeah, because being a band director, there's the musical aspect of it, but then there's also the running your program, and there's so many balls to keep in the air. Organization, being a good manager of your time, it just makes all the difference in the world. Yeah, you can be the best musician in the world, but if you board the buses and you've taken up all the music and you put it in that nice crate, and now the crate is sitting in the band room as the buses pull out to go to contest, there's something not so good about that. And I've actually seen that kind of stuff happen. So
a little too close to home. The orchestra director and I did that 3 years ago.
Oh, gosh.
we left the tub of symphony orchestra music at the school, and the host at the event, it was the Hershey Park Music in the Park strip, and the host band director was so gracious and let us use the photocopier, and we played some things from memory, and we ended up playing, we asked the judges, do you want to hear a good performance or us trying to play the music that we put on the form? They're like, no, by all means do what's going to make you all sound good. So we ended up closing Music in the Parks with a symphony orchestra arrangement of Pinball Wizard, which you adjudicated on stage. Anyway, no, you're totally right on. And why I think that it was important to me that you were the person who talked about some of these productivity basics is because you actually have walked the walk. You have music teaching experience. So
right,
you know exactly
just to bring the audience up to date, I was a junior high, middle school band director, started in 1982, I guess it was, and I thought I would be a band director for 30 years, and actually a junior high band director. That was my little corner of the world, and then decided to go into school administration. So I was a band director for 12 years, then became an assistant principal for 4 years, a principal for 9, central office administrator, and then retired from public education in 2009 at age 50 to give a second career some legs. But really, I very quickly became pegged as that administrator with the music background. So I would often get questions along the line of, Frank, you're a principal, but you've got that band background, so let me ask you a music question. And then from the music community, Frank, you're a principal from an administrator's perspective. How would you handle this? So I wound up being on every committee known to man, is that administrator that knows music. So it's been a good ride, and even to this day, I am the volunteer historian for the Alabama Music Educators Association. Still judge solo and ensembles, still judge some festivals from time to time. My hand is Definitely still in the music end of things, even though my day-to-day is Frank Buck, time management, organization, productivity, regardless of who it is I'm talking to. A band director, a doctor, a lawyer, you name it.
Exactly, yeah. And specifically, and I think that this topic could just as easily apply to any professional field, as from someone who now speaks and presents to people who have multiple different, disciplines and vocations in life. But you do know specifically what are some of the challenges of the music teaching world, and I think you hit on it earlier. There's just so many different areas and domains that we are juggling and managing. And one of the other reasons, I'll mention this too, that I think you're unique is I think anyone knows who listens to this show that I'm a pretty Apple-centric person. I use lots of Apple devices. I've really steeped myself in not only the ecosystem of their products, but also the third-party software that comes on it. I'm a big OmniFocus user when it comes to tasks and everything. You are someone who is notably knowledgeable about not only what are the things that the problems that this can solve for a music teacher, but what are the apps and workflows that are both cross-platform and also can be used on the web. And I thought that would be a really good complement to what my knowledge is.
Because whereas you are the Mac person, I am the Windows person, the Google person. So, we got both ends of the spectrum covered here.
Because, there's the stuff we're going to talk about today is certainly, I think, necessary for all professionals. And it's good to use the tool that's going to work best for you. There are reasons which I'll talk about later why I think some of the tools I've settled on are the best tools for me. But being a Windows user, you use a lot of tools that are cross-platform. It doesn't matter what device you have. You can hop on and even for free, many of the tools I know you're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
I have to, because I want to jump straight into it, but I have this one little note that's been sitting in every episode for the past 3 episodes. I have a follow-up section every episode where I address things from previous episodes. So Amy Burns came on, I think 3 or 4 episodes now, and we were talking about a web app called Seesaw, and we were wondering what SSO means, and friend of the show / also guest who has been on very recently, David MacDonald, wrote in to me to say that SSO just simply stands for single sign-on, which probably was understood by the context of that conversation with Amy, but I just thought that anyone who listens to all of these should know that SSO is an acronym for single sign-on. David has been on since him telling me that, and I forgot to mention it even when he was on, but I just wanted to say SSO, single sign-on, follow it from numerous episodes. That one's out of the way.
Okay.
Crossing off my list. So I think today there's a lot of different areas of personal productivity. There's calendars, there's email, there's tasks, there's notes. I think that we agree that tasks and notes are 2 things that go together hand in hand.
Yeah, I think that tasks and notes, they do go together, and I think they're the 2 from a true productivity suite that are the least understood. Calendars, we've been using calendars for centuries, and I think most people who want to have a handle on digital calendars do. They're good with Google Calendar, and certainly contacts. Most everyone has put aside the pencil and paper address book, and they've got, if you're looking up an address, you're looking up a phone number, you're looking up an email address, you're looking at something digital, and you're looking one place. 5 years ago, so many people had in my email program, that's where I keep email addresses, and then over here I keep physical addresses and phone numbers. Now, it's really all in one place. When it comes to contacts, I think we're there. When it comes to calendar, we're there. When it comes to tasks and notes, most people really are going, teach me, because for most people, what they know is they don't know nearly enough.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You set that up super well. I think also notes and tasks often are confused with each other, and even sometimes tasks are sometimes confused with events that belong in calendars. So I think also I see a lot of people, I guess we'll talk about this a little later in the episode. I see a lot of people putting things like that they are supposed to do in the calendar app.
Yeah. And in workshops, when I ask people, how many of you keep your tasks, you keep that digital? And whereas every hand in the room went up and I asked that about contacts, and at least half the hands go up when I ask how many keep a digital calendar. A half to 3/4 or more. When you say, how many keep your tasks digital? a smattering of hands. And when you start asking, where do what do you use exactly? Most people, when you peel back that onion, it's I keep the test. I put it on my digital calendar because I just don't have another place to put it. Or I put it on that little yellow legal pad looking thing on my iPhone, which is fine for the grocery list for this afternoon, but it's a terrible thing for the thing that you have to do 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now. Robby, I've got things on my task list that are not going to happen for several years, like getting my driver's license renewed. Every 4 years. And nobody's going to send me a card in the mail saying, hey, Frank, this month you got to get your driver's license renewed. That's on me, and I don't want to walk around going, when does my driver's license, and pulling it out and looking on the back of it to see if somehow I've missed something. I don't want to be keeping up with all that little stuff in my head and waking up in the middle of the night trying to remember what I forgot. Let me think about it one time, throw it in the system, and have the confidence that system is going to spit it back to me at the right time so that I can be 100% focused on what I'm doing right now instead of having all that other stuff. The system's handling everything else.
Right, exactly. I think, and that's the thing, is that people don't realize that you can actually live in a world that you create for yourself where you don't have to be juggling all of that stuff in your brain at one time. You can have the system, and the system could be, for me, it's an app that I use on my computer, but the system is telling you based on the context and the time and the date what you should be thinking about and when.
Absolutely.
But there's a setup, isn't there, right?
Oh, yeah. And when people say, let me sit down, I'm going to make a list of what I need to do today, and they start with a blank piece of paper or a blank screen, I have not experienced that phenomenon, and I can't tell you how many decades. Because things that I'm putting on the list are things I'm thinking about now that need to be done sometime in the future. So when I interact with my list later on this evening, as we record this in the evening, as I look at my list, I'm not creating a list from scratch for tomorrow. I'm looking at what's already there and going, how do I want to arrange this? What do I want to postpone a few days? What had I originally scheduled for 2 weeks out that maybe I want to drag back into the present? How do I want to order these things so that when I get up in the morning, it's just bam, right through the plan?
We're dancing around the getting things done methodology a little bit, so I think I should just put a name to what I know we both... I don't consider myself like a religious subscriber to getting things done, but it certainly has influenced my process a lot.
I think, David Allen, he has done so much for the profession. And I actually stumbled upon David in 1997. It was before it was getting things done. It was before he wrote a book. I was following him when... I got this book contract. We have a book coming out. I'm thinking about a title for the book, so forth and so on. My attraction to him was, whereas Stephen Covey was the time management guru and very top down. What are your roles? What are your goals? Establish that, and then work your way down to what do I need to be doing today to meet those things. And here comes David Allen going, let's go the other way. Let's go with getting your desk clean. Let's handle all these little low-level things. And when you have control over those, then you can graduate to what are my goals, what are my roles, what are some of the higher. So I had subscribed to that sort of thing already. But there were actually some other folks before him. Charles Hobbs, he was the guy I really look up to. He wrote a book called Time Power. That was really how to use the day timer, paper planner. And he's the one that taught me how to document. And I've taught what I learned from him, from his book, to, countless people. But David came along, I think, at the right time, came along with a system that was really a pencil and paper system, but came at the time when, the Palm had its big rise to fame, when that was the thing to have. And it was something that was easily adaptable. So it was the right system at the right time, at the right place in technology history.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
So so you talked about a number of names there that have influenced you. David Allen is one that I know that we both have in common. What we've said this word system. I mean, like, not people don't describe how they use their calendar necessarily as a system or how they manage their tasks. So, I guess in order to get into the weeds here and talk about what that means to each of us, what is your task system? How do you top level outline? How do you explain it to other people?
All right. First of all, that as soon as something hits your radar, that it goes in the system. That it's not, I can remember that. Nothing stays in your head. Robby, actually, as a high school senior, and up until that point, I was like every other kid. I'm keeping up with things in my head. I'm jotting things down on a piece of notebook paper that gets folded up and stuck in the middle of a textbook somewhere. I've got things all over everywhere. Senior year, where you've got scholarship auditions and where am I going to school next year, it just became more complex. I hit the brick wall at that point and realized I need something where it's all going in one place. So mine was the index cards. I had an index card for every day. So my job in the morning was take the index card for that day that already had written on the front of it, any appointments and to-dos, and stick it in my pocket. One job. Take the card, stick it in my pocket, head off to school, keep that card front and center during the day. And then anything that happened during the day, I wrote on the back of the card. So any new thing is all getting trapped in the same place. Now, I don't use index cards today. I use, my phone, and it's usually my voice into the phone. But it's the idea of when something first appears that you throw it in the system. Later in the day, look at everything you've thrown in that system. And what I do is everything gets a date. Everything gets a due date, which is my own personal due date. It's not the drop dead deadline for somebody else. But it gives me a point in time when that thing is going to happen. So every task gets a due date, and every task gets a priority that for me doesn't necessarily mean the most important, the least important, but it gives me a spot in the day. Morning, afternoon, evening, and then I have what I call my Fab Five, the 5 most important things. So by sorting things by date, and within the date, by priority, I have, here's my Fab Five, and then here's my little plan for the morning, the afternoon, the evening, and just execute the plan. So that's a large part of my system right there, putting things, throwing things into that task list. I think one thing that separates what I teach from most of the other systems out there is a real heavy reliance on repeating tasks. And I think that comes from my background in education. As you and I well know, the first time you do a concert, all of the little things that go into preparing for that concert, everything from reserving the facility, having tickets printed, securing somebody to pass out the programs at the door. The list just goes on and on and on and on and on. But the good news is, the next time you do a concert, it's those same things. Yep. So how can you take those things the first time they appear and ask yourself, this is not do it one time and check it off. This is, I'm going to be doing this little task next October the 15th as well, and being able to make that a little repeating task. And of course, when you have a digital system, it's very simple to do. So after a year of teaching, you're thanking yourself that second year, and here are all these tasks that are now showing up that were repeating tasks that you put on there last year, and you're thanking your past self for all of the things you're not having to rethink all the time.
Yep. I think what is common about tasks and notes, why people tend to, who want to do a digital system like this, one of the main hangups is I don't think people realize how easy it is now to get your thoughts into an app on a smartphone or a computer. I use, and I know you use Asana, right? Is still your app of choice?
Remember the Milk.
You're on Remember the Milk? Oh my goodness, I have questions.
Remember the Milk, for 2 years now. I started off at 2001 with Outlook Sync to the Palm. It was Outlook Sync to the BlackBerry. And then, and of course, we thought we'd be using BlackBerries forever. That was such a great tool. And then when BlackBerry started to, really go downhill, then it was an Android. And I thought at this point, Outlook, all parts of Outlook weren't really syncing to the Android. So let me just go with an all-cloud system. So we went Google Calendar, Google Contacts, Evernote, and then I went Toodledoo and used that for, a bunch of years. And then 2 years ago went to Remember the Milk when Toodledoo had a change in ownership and changed what they offered in their free plan and that sort of thing. But I've been very happy with Remember the Milk. Yeah, and so much of mine is it's voice entry. And I've even got some things set up through If This Then That, where I can just walk through the living room and I've got that little Google Home sitting there on the piano. So I can just say, okay, Google, Saturday, buy bananas, whatever it may be, and it's in the list. So,
exactly.
It's almost beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah, the thing that was most attractive to me when I first started using OmniFocus, which, by the way, I'm just going to shameless plug this here, because if someone is really interested in this kind of thing and wants to hear more about just my specific workflow, I was just recently a guest on an awesome website's video series called, so the website is Learn OmniFocus, and it's a website and a program and a resource that has membership, and one of the benefits of the members is that they get to attend these live sessions with workflow guests. And I had the very distinct honor of being a workflow guest last Saturday, and that video actually, even though members were only allowed to be in it live and ask me questions, the video has been published for free, and I'll link that in the notes to this episode. But it's like a whole hour of me just talking about exactly my workflow in specifically OmniFocus and complementary apps and things. And one of the things that, and it's a great, by the way, great for anyone who does use OmniFocus or is interested in one of these kinds of apps, tons of free resources on learnomnifocus.com, not just the paid membership stuff, though they do have educator discounts. And so that is a place you can go if you want to learn more about mine. But I just have to say, like, when I first started using this app, it was the inbox concept and the quick entry shortcut, because I wasn't using a smartphone at the time when I first started using this software. So I think it's Control Spacebar with pop a little window on my screen no matter what I was doing. I could be playing a video game and remember that I need to get the milk. And then this little pop-up window in the middle of my Civilization game, this little pop-up window appears right in front of my game, and then I type get milk, enter, and then it's out of sight, out of mind. And then I later go into the inbox where all of my little captured tasks are, but of course Siri and Google and Amazon Echo, it's probably going to go off behind me, my Echo, just because I said the keyword. They all can send stuff to my to-do list, which OmniFocus is always looking at my to-do list and basically just pulling I have it set up to pull all of my to-do list items into its inbox. Yeah, and then of course, so it sounds like you're a very due date-centric person. I am also. I give things not only due dates, but defer dates, which is dates that I want to start working on them. And then my due dates are, which you were saying about how this is, if you can't survive the day without it being done, that's what I give due dates to. So I have two concepts. There's like, here's what I want to be working on, and then, because in OmniFocus, they turn red. The tasks turn red when
when they're overdue. Yeah,
you don't want to be in the red. So.
Yeah, because you have to have some way to know, what do I need to do today? What do I not need to do today? There's some people when they get into a task manager, and when there are no tasks in there, well, it's easy. You start putting tasks in there. When there are only 3 tasks, this is so easy. But if you really and truly put everything that you have to do in there, it adds up very quickly. And the repeating task, if somebody doesn't have at least 100 repeating tasks, they have not identified the repeating task. And the people that are listening to this right now, I just challenge you to take 30 seconds to list the repeating tasks that you just have in your life. It's everything from changing the air filter every month. Do you have a dog? Well, you got to give that dog his heartworm pill once a month. Writing the check to the church for your monthly pledge. There's so many things where you're not going to get some kind of external reminder. You generate these things. But then now there's a long list. And so where do I start? Well, most of those things you don't have to do today, but give it some kind of structure of these are the things I'd like to see today, tomorrow, the next day, a month from now, 6 months from now. I have repeating tasks to remind me to buy a birthday card and a birthday present for my wife, and same thing at Valentine's Day and anniversary, so that you don't wind up. We get busy and we forget, and then we beat ourselves up about how dumb we are. We don't need to be smarter. We just need a better system, and let the system handle some of these things. And it's got to be easy. You were talking about the little quick entry key, where what it sounds like is as easy for you to put a task in there as it would be for you to jot that task on a sticky note.
Easy.
Yeah, and that's the secret. It's got to be easy or you're going to resist it. But the moment that you do that thing, the moment that you put that task in the system, you earn the right to forget about it. See, when people say, I'm forgetful, I'm going, well, make that irrelevant. Make it irrelevant. Let your system do the remembering for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we're talking about this in a date-based way, but a lot of these applications, and I'm going to just spout off a bunch because I know, remember the Milk and Toodledoo are popular ones. OmniFocus and Things on the Mac and iOS version are popular. Outlook, obviously, Todoist, excellent cross-platform.
That's a good one.
Task management app. And a lot of these apps have the quick entry feature. They have due dates as a feature. And what a lot of them also allow you to do is to put things into projects and to also tag things with keywords. And one of the things that I've been doing lately is actually not so much even giving my tasks. I do give a lot of them start and end dates, but I also have been giving them contextual keywords, things like what's my energy level going to need to be when I do this task, or does it relate to networking, or do I need to have my email or my learning management system open to do this task? And then I can actually have whole context of work where I don't even have to have due dates. Like, for example, a lot of my tasks have to do with grading things. My gradebook is in a web browser. It's slow. I wait every time I click a button. So I like to spend concentrated times in the gradebook. So I have a tag called Canvas, which is the learning management software I use. And I don't even give those assignments due dates because I know I'm going to go into the gradebook at least like once a day. So I filter my task list by the Canvas tag, and then all these tasks that are out of sight, out of mind when I'm looking at what's called, for me, the forecast view in OmniFocus, which is like a date-based calendar kind of view. I see all of these things that are related specifically to grades, and then I can focus on just that one thing. Or if I get to a certain place, I have a Home Depot tag, or I have a tag that pings my phone when I get to work, and then another tag that pings my phone when I leave work. And you were talking about planning concerts. I have some project templates that are in plain text files on my computer that I actually run a little fancy script and an application called Drafts, and they filter into, I tell it the due date of the concert, and then it actually adds start and end dates that are relative to that date. So the winter concert is on, let's say it's January 3rd. I don't have to pack the tuba into my car until an hour before I go to the school. So that due date is 5 p.m. on the day of the concert, and it doesn't show up on my to-do list until even a couple of hours before that. You have these things that are out of sight, out of mind, and then you repeat them, and then they actually leverage the strengths of the phone. Like a sticky note doesn't know if I'm in my car leaving a geofence.
That's right.
But we've all forgot the tuba before. Do you know what I mean? That's exactly the problem it solves.
Yeah. In my workshops, I'll say having the due dates, it's like, when do you want to see this again? Give it that due date. But then what if you somehow need to see it before then? And that's where search comes in, which is one of the things that makes a digital tool so great. With your paper planner, you got things that are date-based, but then how do you find, I know I wrote that task down, where is it? What date did I put that there for? A good example, let's say you've got somebody that you work with and you've got some things on your list related to that person. Let's call him Joe. So I think it's something I need to talk to Joe about. So if you throw on your list Joe and whatever it is, and then you throw on your list something else about Joe and give it whatever due date. All right, so let's say Joe comes walking in the door unexpectedly. Wouldn't it be good if you could put your hands on a list of everything you need to talk to Joe about? So even for somebody who's using just a very basic task manager, no tags even really, they just search for Joe, and there it is. There's everything about Joe there. Or you're sitting in the airport. Your flight's been delayed. You want to be productive, and all you got your phone. You could make some phone calls if you knew what they were. If every time you threw something on your list that was a phone call, if you included the word call somewhere in the task, search for the word call, and there they are for you. So I'm using that kind of thing all the time. For one example, for me, you talked about your grade book. For me, usually on Friday, I make my email for my email list. I email my list every week, the people who have subscribed to my email list. And so as I'm thinking of things, I'll give it a due date of Friday, because that's when I put that thing together. But I'll also put the keyword constant contact in there, because that's constant contact is what I use. On Friday, I can also just search for constant contact, and there's every little thing that I wanted to put into that particular email. So that's another thing that makes a digital list just so great, is that just that ability to search.
Yeah, right on. Totally. Sidebar, do you want to start the pivot to notes, maybe?
Sure,
or do you have
absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, some of these topics, I should say, some of these strengths of digital task managers are also strengths of digital note-taking apps, too. So I want to maybe pivot into that direction, but I also want to tell you about something today. Can I tell you about something?
Absolutely.
I'm going to tell you about something awesome. So I've got a sponsor this week, and this week's sponsor is Flat for Education. Have you heard of Flat for Education?
I have not.
I think you will appreciate them. They make a product called Flat that is widely known in music education circles for. I know you're a Google person, so they have a Google Docs and a Google Sheets plugin that allows you to use their. So Flat is a web-based sheet music editor, like a notation score editor, and they have this Chrome extension that right from within a Google Sheet or Doc, you can run their extension, and it'll put a little mini version of their notation editor inside of the Google Doc, and you can input note entry on a staff right from within your slides, presentation, or Google Doc.
Nice.
And they're an excellent web-based score editor, and they have an education platform. And this week, the Flat for Education is sponsoring the show, and also the entire month of the Music Ed Tech Talk blog. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. Flat for Education offers music educators and their students the most affordable cloud-based music notation software on the market, empowering teachers to create playful and engaging music activities, creations, assessments on any device at any time. The platform integrates with every well-known learning management system available: Google Classroom, Microsoft 365, Canvas, Schoology, and MusicFirst, just to name a few. Everything will be synchronized with your existing setup to avoid any time loss. Flat for Education offers an advanced system of assignments, allowing you to create playful and stunning music activities with your students. Create a template for all of your students to start working from, or simplify the toolbar to have them only working with eighth notes and quarter notes. The only limit is your imagination. Save a lot of time generating worksheets and quizzes in just a few clicks for your students to practice music theory. Finally, band directors and choir conductors can have their students directly recording their performance from home for review. Whether you're teaching remotely or in person, Flat for Education will support you in creating playful and engaging music activities in no time. You can try it free for 90 days at flat.io/edu, and there is a link to that site in the show notes to this episode. I have been testing Flat for Education for a couple weeks now, so I've had the opportunity to test a lot of web-based music education software since we've been out of school in March, and I just have to say, and this ties a little bit into our discussion earlier about you have cross-platform apps that are oftentimes designed to run web first in a browser tab, and then you have native applications that, in my case, like third-party Apple apps that are designed to run on a specific operating system. And one of the benefits of apps that are native is a lot of times they come with really clean, beautiful designs. They integrate really well into the operating system. They're intuitive. They are reliable. You click things and you feel like you're touching a real button. There's lots of benefits that come with that. Flat for Education runs in a web browser, like a lot of education software, but there is something about the design of it that, as I've been using it a little more extensively these past few weeks, that is very gripping to me. And I think it's just having now been teaching online for since March and seeing what are the kinds of technological stressors on teachers and students, one of them is just the user experience and design of the software. And so many companies that are making music education software and just education software in general are getting this wrong and overlooking this crucial detail. But Flat for Education is beautiful, intuitive, reliable, user-friendly. It is just everything down to the menu bar and the toolbar in the app. It doesn't feel cluttered or difficult to find where a crescendo is. What I just said there was true a second ago. Like, you can simplify and customize the toolbar so that your students are only looking at the things that are necessary for them. The onboarding experience, the setup could not be easier. I think that in a time where there's a lot of software out there for students to be engaging with music, the less barriers to entry that there are, the better. And Flat's user experience is just designed so beautifully and intuitively that I cannot recommend enough that anyone interested goes there and tries this trial just to see not only, and I'm speaking to the design, this is like a great score editor and learning platform, but on top of that, it has this prioritization on the design. So I'm super impressed with Flat, and I recommend people check it out.
All right. And Robby, as you were talking about that, I grabbed my phone. I said, new task, research Flat for Education, save. Put the phone down. Now, I have the privilege, I can now forget all about Flat for Education. And when I look back at my list tomorrow, there it's going to be. And I might research it tomorrow, might research it the next day. But that's not going to go away. I don't have to worry about forgetting it, having to do it now or I'll forget about it. No.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's committed. It's committed. Now, we, of course, could, if you wanted to, we could talk about review or how do you... I certainly, one thing that, and this actually, you saying that is a little bit of a pivot to the topic of notes, because there are times where, for me, something is going to clutter up my to-do list, but I definitely don't want to forget it. And I think that is one of many valuable reasons to take notes digitally as well.
Yeah.
I'd say probably some of the same hang-ups people have with tasks are the same with notes. So, like, it's what is the quickest barrier to entry, or what is the quickest input method? Usually there's a pencil on someone's desk and a piece of scrap paper, and so you reach for them. But a lot of these apps today have quick entry as well for notes, or even voice integration. I'm going to take a wild guess that you probably take notes with your voice.
As much as possible. Yes.
So like you do with tasks, do you have a system or like a series of like values that you identify with good digital note-taking?
Yeah, and my app of choice is Evernote. I've had an account since 2009, and for several years just really, I really didn't understand what I had there. After I left Outlook, Evernote became the replacement for the Outlook notes. But then once those notes were in Evernote, it just expanded so much from there. The ability to put things in with your voice, the ability to take a photograph and an audio note and type notes, and it all be part of the same note. We could really spend several hours just talking about Evernote and not at all cover the subject. But what I'm looking for in a note-taking app is, first of all, to have an inbox so that during the day I can throw different things at it and not worry about... Robby, I think this is a huge part of it. Separating, trapping things, whether it's a task or whether it's a note, doing the trapping and then the organizing later. That I can throw things at Evernote and then later in the day in that Evernote inbox look at it and go, what does this mean to me? I can see something in a store and go, ooh, that would be a great gift for my wife. Pull out Evernote, take a quick picture, and now I don't have to stand right there and go, all right, what do I need to title this note? What notebook do I need to put this in? What do I need to put over on my task list? No, I can just throw the phone back in my pocket. That night, I can look at whatever's come in. I'm looking at that picture going, oh yeah, I was in the so-and-so store to door, and the reason I took that picture was I think that's going to be a great gift. let me now look on Amazon and see if I can find it there and what the price is and so forth and so on. And so then that's going to now either wind up on my task list or it gets put in a particular notebook in Evernote called Gift Ideas for the Future. So whether it's your task list or your notes, there has to be that place for things you've just thrown in there, like a junk drawer that on a pretty much a daily basis you're looking at going, how do I now need to organize this? Then I think next there needs to be some kind of multi-level organization. Like with Evernote, you have basically the note, which is like a note card. Think of it like a note card.
Sure.
And then you can then put notes into a notebook and then notebooks into stacks. I think of stacks as like a bookcase. Like you got a bunch of notebooks. Maybe this bookcase is all of my notebooks from college, and this bookcase over here, these are my notebooks about band in my professional life. So that would be like what stacks are in Evernote. So I think if you just have just a whole bunch of notes, it'd be like a whole bunch of index cards that aren't organized in any type of fashion. So to have some kind of several multi-level sort of things to organize them. Gosh, the ability to search, and Evernote is so great. You know, with your traditional filing system, it's knowing what drawer did I put that in, and inside that drawer, which file folder did it go in, and how was it named, and so forth. With Evernote, you're just thinking, gosh, that conversation I had with, what was the guy's name? Well, I remember his first name and I remember his last name started with a B. So I can say Joe and then the letter B and an asterisk for the wild card. And then any other little thing I might have, you know, gosh, we were in Arizona. Let me put Arizona in there. Search for that, and it's going to bring it up for you. Even if you have no idea where you put it, it's so easy to search and find the things that you want in there. So I think that's important, having a real good search. And then last, that Evernote has its own link. Because here's where the task and the notes can really work together. A lot of times you've got a task, and when you sit down to do that task, there's some related information. So if that related information is in a note over in Evernote, and that note has a link, I can copy that link, make it part of the task. When I sit down to do the task, there's the link, click, and there's the supporting material now that I need to be able to do that task.
Yeah, that's one of a few things you just said that I want to touch on real quick. That's so critical. You spoke to search for a second. Evernote is cross-platform. If anyone is really interested in going down this path, I have some personal grievances with Evernote that I can express to you later. But I think, though, that as an app that'll run on any platform, that's got a great web interface, you can just run it on the web. Evernote has a lot of really great features that are awesome, and search being one of them. I am less inclined to organize my notes than I am my tasks, just because of how good the Evernote search is. I love that it doesn't just make PDFs, Word documents, and other kinds of files that you drag into it text searchable, but even pictures, text that it can recognize in images as text searchable. So you just have, for me, you use the analogy of bookcases. For me, it's more just like one, if you can imagine just pulling one filing cabinet drawer out, but it just keeps going and going. It's all of my stuff. But then being able to just still find anything, even though it's not really that organized, that's the power of the Evernote search for me when I was using it more extensively.
To me, it's if somebody back decades ago had a filing cabinet, paper, and their daily procedure was, I've got papers to file, I'll just open any drawer and I'll just throw them in there. And people say, how do you retrieve Well, I just stick my hand in there and the right paper magically attaches to my hand. And we'd say, oh, come on. But that's exactly what happens with some Evernote. You can just throw it in there. You search for what you want, just like reaching your hand in a barrel. And there it is for you. It's too good not to do. And people can get into it for free. With a free account, you can upload, I think it's 60 megs. When I was using the free plan, I never did bump up against the limit. Unless you were taking a lot of pictures, you wouldn't. and you can have it on. You can access it from the web from as many devices as you want to, but then you can have it downloaded to 2 devices. So what I tell people is load the computer you use the most, download the desktop software to that computer, and then download the app to your phone. So that would be your 2 free devices. And then for $70 a year, that's like going out to eat twice. You can have the pro account and then have it on as many devices as you want, and all kind of bells and whistles and pretty much unlimited storage.
Yeah, for me, that when I was using it, I was on that because having a native app on the iPad was a big enough part of my workflow that I really needed that third ability to download it on a third device. And of course, I have a second Mac that I occasionally use. But the thing, so what I'm using now, and I will not go too deep on this because this is actually, if I'm being honest with the listeners here, this is not something I recommend for that many people, but there is a research tool for the Mac and the iPhone and the iPad called DEVONthink that I have invested quite a bit of time into learning, and it has replaced Evernote in nearly every way, only it was a one-time purchase, and it allows me to have take advantage of some good native, because one of the features of having an app versus something that runs in a web browser that we didn't mention yet is that these things can be automated. I know we're going to talk about how you can automate and string things together in a second here. Web apps like Evernote and Google Docs and Google Calendar can be automated using the power of the web. They're running on servers. So if you have a program like IFTTT and you have a rule that says when I set up a calendar event for this particular class, create a note in my Evernote note with that same title, and so that I can create a lesson plan in Evernote or something like that. You can automate things using just these web tools and have all that running in the background. Something you can do with native applications is you can do things like run Applescript, which is like a scripting language common to the Mac. It seems like it might not be getting as much love as it used to, but you can do these kind of like local computer scripts that can be fast and powerful and efficient. And one of the things I love about DEVONthink is that I do have it all syncing to the cloud, but I can also access everything offline really easily. And I have a huge database. I actually imported my entire Evernote database to DEVONthink, and DEVONthink works with archives of the web, which also Evernote does a wonderful job of. You can clip, there's this little extension you can get that clips a website. DEVONthink has it too, but you can clip a website into Evernote or DEVONthink, and it'll make that website look like the website when you're viewing it inside of your Note app with clickable links and formatting and everything. But then that can be stored amongst other things. So like for me, I keep a lot of my documents on my computer's hard drive, but like when I'm preparing for band adjudication, there might be like a Google form that I have to fill out that my music administrators have sent me that tells them how many seats and chairs I need out. I might have a Microsoft Word document that has a seating chart, and I have to fill out like a list of repertoire we're playing. I might have another document that's like a PDF of the letter I'm going to send home to kids. I might have emails from families asking if they can pick up their kid early, and I need to have that in writing. And I can dump all of those different kinds of things into the same group of documents in DEVONthink, or in Evernote. You could make a stack out of all of these different kinds of things because you can forward an email into Evernote as well. And you get this like multimedia-rich kind of contextual environment where you're not just thinking about your files. You're thinking about, I have lots of different apps on my computer. I have mail, I have the web, and I have all these different apps I make documents in. And you can just have all that stuff be living and coexisting in a sweet and harmonious world. Yeah. So, and you mentioned linking too. Evernote, you can right-click a note, and you can copy a link to that to the clipboard and easily share your notes publicly, or right.
Where it actually becomes like a web page. And I've gotten to where now when I do workshops, and if it's a handout, it's digital and it's in Evernote. Just to give you just a quick thank you very much Evernote story. I'm sitting in my hotel room looking over at the handout right before I'm going to go and present, and I see the mother of all typos in the title of the handout. Now, under normal circumstances, if this had been a PDF, this would have been boot my computer, bring up the Word document, fix the mistake, save it again as the PDF, tell it, yes, I do want to overwrite this one over the old one, hope I've got a good internet connection, upload the new PDF to my to the file section of my website, tell it that yes, I want the new one to overwrite the old one. And with Evernote, I'm sitting there looking at the typo on my phone. I touch the error and fix it on my phone, and it's saved and the same link. So I go in to do the workshop, and I just write on the board, here's the little shortened link. Everybody goes to that link, and there's the handout. And I tell them that hey, just hang on to that link. And if I improve that handout, you go to that link, and you're getting the latest, greatest version. And when this whole COVID thing started, and people were looking for resources, I had been putting together some of the better Flute resources I had in Evernote, and I thought, look, this is great for me to have. Let me let the whole world have it. So I created a link and just made it a little shortened link. So if you go to, I think it's bit.ly/Flute2020, all in lowercase, then here's all this wonderful Flute stuff for people who now are sitting at home, who now have all the time in the world to practice at home if they got good stuff to practice from. And as something else comes along, I've been improving that little document and not worrying about telling people, oh, let's let this replace this one. No. Whoever goes to that same link is getting the latest, greatest version of it. So, I mean, it's easy, and it's easy enough I'll use. And to me, that's the whole thing. It's got to be easy, or people are not going to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would use this for presenting notes as well. And what I like about it also is I can actually, if I am an Evernote user, I'm looking at your Flute note right now, by the way. I can click this big green save copy to my Evernote, and then it saves it to the native application and still syncs any changes that you make.
Yeah.
Because this would happen to me a lot. I'm being an Apple guy. I would say, like, all right, everyone, try this sheet music scanner app. And then there's always that person in the back, like, what about Windows? And then someone else says, oh, yeah, use this one. And then I can add that to the note that I have shared the link with everyone. And now they have the most up-to-date version of the notes. It's awesome. It's great. And you can clip that link. Let's just say that, like, you're making a task, and most task apps have a little field where you can type a quick note.
Yeah.
But if you want to do something like Evernote that has like URLs and audio recordings and files embedded in it, you can put the link to the Evernote or DEVONthink or whatever. You can put the link to your note in the notes field of your to-do, and then now you have this greater context. So like for me, I might have an old version of my emergency subplans in DEVONthink, and I right-click it, copy the URL to the clipboard, and then I put that as the to-do make 2020 subplans. And now that document is referential. It can just permanently live in this space in my Note app where I can search for it. But then the task can also link me directly to that document.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to me, having those links that you can put in your task manager, it makes things so easy. Because to me, Evernote is reference. It's like the big metal filing cabinet that's sitting over there in the corner. That when you want that information, it's there and it's organized. Now, what's going to be the trigger that's going to send you over to the filing cabinet? That's your task manager, where if, let's say that somebody went, oh, okay, bit.ly/Flute2020. All right, let me grab that. Oh, I like that, but I don't have time right now to go in that in depth, but Saturday, I'd like to really take a look at that. What's going to be the trigger on Saturday to send you over to the filing cabinet to look at it? Let's just say, okay, look at Frank Buck's Flute resource, give it a date of Saturday, and then include that little link. And now you've earned the right to forget about it. On Saturday, you look at your list, and there's the trigger to review that, click the link, and now you're looking at it. So it's all about making it easy.
Totally. Yeah, and it's a reason for me why I need those features. I do for most of my very general clipping of websites, lightly formatted text notes, dragging a file here and there or a PDF. I do actually use the Apple Notes app on my Apple stuff. But
it's better. Yeah.
It's so much better, but one of the few but important hangups for me is that you cannot copy the link to a specific note to the clipboard. That is such a crucial thing you've mentioned. Now, you're doing another kind of linking between your tasks and your notes. You're using something called TaskClone, am I right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Let me This would be for someone who is either using Evernote or OneNote, either one of those two, Evernote or OneNote, and you're using a digital task manager. This thing is a stroke of genius. All right, let's take you back to, say, 1997, 1998, when I'm using that day timer. So you got your two facing pages for every day. Left-hand page, there are my appointments and then my to-dos. And then there's that blank right-hand page for anything that comes up during the day. Notes from phone calls, notes from meetings. So let's say I go into a meeting. I'm taking notes on that right-hand page. Some of that is just reference information, but there are also going to be some to-dos. There are probably going to be some calendar events that come out of that. But instead of flipping all back and forth through my paper planner, putting things on calendar pages and putting to-dos on certain dates, I'm just writing it all down on that right-hand page. And then later in the day, my job is to look at what I've written and make decisions about what it means to me. You have some of the little chicken scratching, and I might have written a couple of to-dos, and I look back at it, and I go, gosh, I just thought of 4 more to-dos that come out of that. So I'm then taking those notes and putting those where they belong on different days as far as my task list, putting calendars on the calendar. And then let's say I'm in a meeting with Joe. And one of the things we say is, let's touch base about this that we've talked about in 2 weeks. I'm going to write on that right-hand page, follow up with Joe in 2 weeks, and put a little checkbox in front of it to show me that's a to-do. Well, later in the day, I'm going to look at that and go, 2 weeks, follow up with Joe. At that point, I flip ahead in my planner, and I write down 2 weeks from now, follow up with Joe. And then in parentheses, I would put date that we had talked. So now it's 2 weeks from now. I see follow up with Joe on my list for that day. I see that little notation for the day we talked. I'm now looking back at the notes I took 2 weeks ago. So here's what TaskClone does. It gives me that very same thing. I'm in a meeting. I want to take notes digitally. I just create a new note. I'm taking all the notes during that meeting. There's some to-dos that come out of it. I just put a little checkbox in front of anything that's a to-do. And then before I close that note, I tag it TaskClone. TaskClone harvests any of the to-dos and anything that was a calendar event, also that had a little checkbox. It puts it on my calendar if it's an event. It puts it on my task list if it's a to-do. And in the notes section of that task, it puts a link back to the Evernote note. So now it's 2 weeks from now. In Remember the Milk, I see a task that says follow up with Joe. There's the link. I click it, and it has just brought up that whole set of notes from 2 weeks ago. It's amazing. It's $20 a year.
It's like just one guy who develops it, too.
A guy by the name of Troy Christmas. Wonderful guy. Their support is very good. So I highly recommend it. If you're using, say, either Evernote or OneNote, and you're using a digital task manager, those two things, you got to get this. It just is a lifesaver.
Yeah, without a doubt. When I was using Evernote, I was using this in combination with OmniFocus, and it was just so incredibly awesome to have that integration. And it's so thorough and well put together and developed. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Yeah, so those are some ways you can get tasks and notes working together. I think in the note here, I have in the outline, I have Robby's note dilemma. I think the note dilemma is as simply put as this, that I have for a long time really bounced around note apps, even more than I have bounced around to-do apps, because these things, once you get specific about the features and how they work and how they're designed, these are really very intimate classes of apps. They have a lot to do with like how do our brains work, how are our brains wired, and I think that I'm finally like settling down a little bit with Apple Notes being for general purpose text and clipping of things, but then DEVONthink is more of the everything bucket, or like the archival kind of dumping ground of PDFs and receipts and websites and things I want to, all of that stuff. So I think it's finally working. But I do think that if anyone is just wondering what is a free cross-platform catch-all that has all of the features we just discussed, Evernote is worth a look.
Yeah.
Another sidebar. Do you want to do this album and app of the week, or do you have other note?
Yeah,
topics?
sure. Yeah, let's see. The app of the week, because I had jotted down a couple, Evernote being one. If we didn't cover it, and I think we really covered Evernote. So the one I want to share is Feedly. Feedly.com, Fedly.com. There are a lot of great blogs out there, but gosh, it is such a pain to go and visit this one to see if there's a new post and go to that one and go to the other one. So Feedly is a place where you can identify the blogs that you like, and not only blogs, but YouTube channels. Instead of subscribing to somebody's YouTube channel, I'll just add the link to the channel into Feedly. And so whenever there's new content for any of these things, podcasts for that matter too, I'll just go to this one place. So then I can go to Feedly.com and just read, watch, and listen to any of those things that I had wanted it to collect for me. And it's absolutely free. It's on the web, and it's also an app on your phone, so that wherever you are, you can enjoy that content that you had wanted to save up.
There used to be something that I think a lot of people were familiar with called Google Reader, which was a service that did...
I used that, yeah.
The same thing. Yeah, I used it too. I was a very faithful user. And I think it was probably the app in this category that had the most mainstream success, but I think a lot of people are really just either... Like, I know that most people I talk to don't actually save the blogs they like to read and visit them every day, but I think that, like, Facebook and Twitter has become a source of a news feed for people. The problem is that if you like someone's content, like, the Twitter algorithm is not something to be relied upon. I follow you on Twitter. I like some of your tweets. You would think Twitter would know that I want to see everything you put out there, but I don't. And that's... If you want to subscribe to a person's ideas, RSS being the underlying technology behind Feedly, it's so good. The app is good. The service is good. I've recently moved to a service called Feedbin, which is more or less what you're saying.
Same kind of thing, yeah.
Same as that category. I'm glad you mentioned it, because we both are putting out web content, and then later we're self-promote it. So we might as well tell people, if you like the content we produce, you should subscribe to it in Feedly. It's a free app. And then what's cool is much like an email client can, like, much like you can have a Gmail account, but you can use like any email client but logged in through your Google credentials. There are tons of what are called RSS clients out there, apps that are really good at making the content look legible and readable on a computer or a mobile device. I use an app called Reader on my iPhone that I log into Feedly or Feedbin through it, and then it strips out all of the ads and makes it look like a little mini newspaper for me. Really cool stuff. Okay, my app. So this is this actually is note related. So we just talked about all these powerful note taking and task app related things. There is definitely a place in my life where I need to have a little scratch pad, something that's easier to get something down in, and it's for a thought that I will not need to have beyond an hour. It's not even a calendar event. It might be as simple as I'm walking out the door, I need my keys, I need my cell phone, I need my driver's license, I need some cash. Or it might be like, in the next hour I want to do the dishes. I don't know. Sometimes I just hold my brain together. I have these like very short-term kind of ways where like a digital version of a sticky note would make sense, only like one that was like hanging out like 7 inches in front of my eyes so that I just can stay focused. I'm excited to say that us iOS people have finally caught up to you all on Android, and we now finally can put widgets on our home screens with the recent update to iOS 14. And I've been experimenting a lot with widgets. I really like an app called Sticky Widgets, which is, it's an iOS widget app. The app doesn't do anything. It's just the widget. So when you launch, what it does is basically you can create a little mini square sticky note or a long rectangular sticky note that occupies the space that takes up the space where you would otherwise have tappable apps to launch into your software. But what it does is it just keeps a permanently fixed sticky note right on the first page or wherever you put it of your phone home screen. And then when you tap, it does actually launch an app, but all the app does is you just type in what you want the sticky note to say. And I paid $2. You can change the color of the sticky note and the text and the font. But it's just a nice thing, like where my to-do list for the day is done, and it's nighttime, and I just have a couple of, like, I would call it not necessarily even a task, just like a focus. I have a nightly focus. Or you could put a mantra there if you wanted to, or just any kind of textual thought that is going to be, you could just type like whatever you feel like and just have it permanently fixed. So I don't know. I think that is a cool, you can stack widgets on iOS. So I have like my OmniFocus widget, which is my today list of stuff, is like in this little lower left corner of my screen. And then when it's all done for the day, I just swipe up and then it's a little sticky note. So sticky widgets.
Yeah.
Sounds
good.
trivial compared to Evernote, but it has a use.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do an album of the week? It does not have to be an album. It can be any kind of piece of music or a recent concert you went to, or, well, as if we're going to concerts. But
we will.
We sure will.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And actually what I'm going to share is, the old Handel flute sonatas. Because, a lot of the people that are listening to us are middle school, high school band directors. What's good literature, and even a good middle school player. Man, those Handel flute sonatas. And the nice thing about that, you can go on YouTube and you can search and find a recording of Ron Paul, for example. I know he's got one where he's playing those. Where if you're a middle school student, you're a high school student, you got plenty of time to practice at home. And what you need is good literature and a good model and the desire to be good. And if you've got those, you really want to get better, and you're practicing from the right stuff, and you've got a model for what you want to sound like. I share that for that reason. And then plus also I have a link for you, Robby, that you can put in the show notes where our listeners who are listening to this guy who's Mr. Productivity and Time Management, he was a principal and he was a curriculum. How well does he play his instrument? So if you want to hear me play flute, we'll have Robby, if we can put a link in the show notes to a Handel flute sonata that I had uploaded to Anchor some time ago, and people can listen to the old guy play the flute.
It is not every week that someone during this segment offers themselves as a representation. I love it.
Yeah,
I'm excited to put that in the notes.
And it just shows that music is something you can do as long as you're on the face of the earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I'm going to choose something totally different. I'm going to choose an electronic album. So I've been listening to an album by BT. He's an electronic. His roots are in electronic dance, forward of the floor, filling out big kind of dance clubs with lights blaring and flashing. But he's got a really strong and diverse musical background, and he is he's just got a really great artistic touch to the way that he makes these albums. The tracks have interesting development. They're not just like songs, but instrumentals of songs that have one kind of dance beat that just pounds at 125 beats per minute for 6 minutes. He really like thinks of them as compositions, even though at their core they are still in that same style. He's just like a master of creating sonic landscapes. The sounds he creates with his synthesizers and the way that they are panned through a decent stereo system is just like the definition of like hearing in like the entire spectrum of color that is available to our ears. Like he just totally has his own unique voice with the way that he paints electronic tone color all over the place. But at the root of it is this like dancey kind of thing, this very consistent beat. So I find that it's useful for me to, it's just like really good for logistic work. If I'm typing emails or doing some lesson planning or putting content in Canvas, it's really good to have this kind of music on in the background. Something about the way that it makes my ears and my body vibrate, keeps me focused. But then also, I do breathing gym warm-up exercises with my band students at the beginning of each Google Meet. And we do like trunk twists and breathe in for 8 counts, breathe out for 8 counts. And a lot of these songs are in like the 120 to 130 beats per minute zone. And kids love this music. BT and his new album, The Lost Art of Longing, has also been supplying the first 5 minutes of my breathing warm-ups this week.
Yeah.
There you all have it. We're going to do this again. The next episode of the show should be released in about 2 weeks from now, and we're going to talk about some other facets of personal productivity, calendar, email, I think, to name a few. I want to get your thoughts also on time tracking. I've been time tracking a little bit lately, too.
Oh, I've got one with Evernote you'll love it.
Sweet. Okay, that's exciting. Even though you're coming back, I think it's worth saying that there are some places on the internet that people can find all of your work. frankbuck.org is your website. You've got a great mailing list. I don't know. I'm seeing something in the outline. Do you want to talk about these free gifts and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. If you like what you're hearing here, folks, just go over to my website, frankbuck.org, and you'll see a little place to sign up for my email list right there on the homepage. And you're going to get right off the bat 2 free gifts. The first one's going to get your desk clean. It's really basically the first chapter of my book, which talks about organizing the paper, using the tickler file, but it'll get your desk clean. The second gift that you get several days later is an ebook that I put together on Remember the Milk. So it's how to get it, the one-time setting, the getting up and running with Remember the Milk. It talks about the strategy I use, the things that you heard me say about giving everything a due date, giving everything a priority, that sort of thing. And then I'm in your inbox once a week telling you the latest and greatest, what I have added to my website that week. I generally do a blog post, podcast, YouTube combination once a week. That'll keep you up to date on that sort of thing. And then I also add several tips and tricks, things that I've read during the week, or I think things that you need to know. So come over to frankbuck.org and get on the list.
Awesome. And I'm Robby Burns. Thanks for listening to Music Ed Tech Talk. You can find the show's page, show notes for this episode, and my blog at musicedtechtalk.com. You can subscribe to blog posts through an RSS app of your choice, and you can subscribe to the podcast in the podcast app of your choice. You can now get blog posts delivered right into your email inbox in a once-a-week newsletter. Please rate and review this show in the podcasts app. It absolutely helps. It'll take a second and just a few taps. Word of mouth is helpful too, so please spread the word about the show if it is helping you out. Learn more about my music and teaching career at robbyburns.com. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Robby Burns. Thanks again to this episode's sponsor, Flat for Education. Be sure to check them out. See you next time.